Hey, y'all just keep talking.
We are just going to keep talking. We're going to wait and let everybody have a minute to log on, but we're live now. So you ready to roll?
I'm ready.
You ready to roll? Okay. What you looking at?
I'm just looking at the list.
All right. We'll let Jen and everybody. What's up, John? Everybody's got to get through the commercials right there. There we go. Now we got people on here. We'll give about another 10 seconds and we will get started. Let everybody catch up. For all you that are already on, hello.
What's going on, everyone?
And yeah, there we go. So, all right, guys. So, hey, welcome to Tuesday night's edition of the show here at Fish North Georgia. We have got a special one for you tonight. I will echo the sentiment of Ron Swinford, where a lot of you should have your notepad ready to take down some wisdom tonight. Got a very special guest and back with us here at Fish North Georgia for another appearance. Someone we think highly of, Mr. Bill Payne. How are you tonight?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, goodbye. We appreciate you coming back down. Again, let's take care of a few things before we get started. If you are watching on Facebook or the Facebook group page, make sure you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and put your name in there so that when your comment pops up, we will know who you are and we can address you by your name. And yep, Blake is back tonight. Put the camera on old Smiley there.
Feels like I haven't been on in like 2 months.
You haven't been on in a while. It's been a while.
2 months.
Everybody done thought we done fired him, but no, he is back. He's been busy doing life and all that. So we're glad he's back. Again, want to go ahead and start this episode off like we do all of them. That this episode is made possible by our great partners, and our biggest is State Farm and the Cassidy Agency. And our local agent, Chase Epley, just right up the road here. And again, you've heard me talk many times about the benefits of having a policy with State Farm, anything from your home and your auto, all the way down to the personal articles policy that we like to promote here. And that we talk all the time with the local anglers. It protects your gear, your rods, your electronics and all that. And we encourage everyone to at least call Chase and get a quote, just kind of find out what he can do for you. And the telephone number is 678-779-7269, or you can email him at chase@cassidysf.com. And again, we thank State Farm for coming on board and also for supporting the Electric Elite and all they do that. So all they do for them on that side as well. So we appreciate that. And again, glad to see everybody is popping on. Tonight, I want to make sure everybody gets a chance. We want you to participate. We want you to ask a lot of questions. I got a lot of wisdom sitting right across from me. It is you like this hat, Fishing for Warriors hat. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But we want you guys to take advantage of this and to definitely, they finally made the number where Danny can remember it with the sign on the wall. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So makes it a lot easier for me to do it that way. Speaking of Fishing for Warriors, again, let's go ahead and talk about that. Justin Speece has a kayak tournament that he is putting on for Fishing for Warriors, and that is March 20th. Where's it at, Paul?
Lake Lanier.
Lake Lanier. All right. And again, it's going to be, now again, I'm not trying to say that I understand all this kayak stuff, but it's going to be on LiveX. And what else? There's another thing that it's on. I'm throwing these facts out I'm pulling them out of air. What is that, Paul?
We got a live event going, and then there's also an online via Attorney X.
Online via Attorney X and a live event going. So whatever that means, I'm sure you kayak guys.
Details to be released probably tomorrow.
Final details to be released probably tomorrow. But again, that's all. Got some pretty cool stuff. If you want to take part in that, that's cool. We are selling raffle tickets as well as Justin to raise money. All this is going to Fishing for Warriors. Speece has done an incredible job of putting together. I mean, it's got to be getting close, if not over, about $4,000 worth of prizes and different things. And the raffle tickets are only $1. And so for $1, you get a chance to win. And it's too much to list. But I know it's anywhere from guided trips to rods, reels, stuff like that. So if you have the opportunity to come by the store, I've got them for sale. I've been selling them pretty good for $1. And Justin Speece, look him up on Facebook and see if you can if you can get with him and get some of these tickets before the raffle takes place. So as always, what's up, Tatum? Hey, Tatum, how are you, baby? And all the girls at Berry College. So Victoria and Rosie, there you go. There's your shout outs right there. So got to do that or she gets ill. She gets ill. She's like her mama. She's just like her mama with that. So also too, if you got a chance to come by the shop, we're still as always doing our food drive for the Georgia Mountain Food Bank, non-perishables, canned goods, stuff like that. Mr. and Mrs. Thurman, actually, if you're watching tonight, I've got another full barrel. I need you to come pick up. So again, right there's Justin Speece's phone number right there, 770-616-9692. So give him a call, and this is a good thing. Again, going with Fishing for Warriors right there. Everything's going to that. But again, yeah, there's Eric Thurman right there. Hey, I got another barrel full of food that our great people here in the local area have brought and donated. And again, this is something that we're going to continue to do. So Georgia Mountain Food Bank services, and I hope I get all these right off the top of my head, Forsyth, Dawson, Lumpkin, Hall, and I think Union counties. And what they do is they take that food and they distribute it to some of the smaller food banks around, and we get the food to where it needs to go. So definitely a good time there. And again, I always tell everybody, if you've got something you'd like us to announce on the show, you see the ticker going across the bottom. If you will hit me in time before each show, I'll make sure that we get your announcement on there. If you want me to do the reading of it, I will gladly do that. And again, we love the comments. Ron Pendergrass, Blake, did you watch the video on eating the fish? No, he did not. But Josh and I have watched. That's the fermented herring that we're going to do here. Ron, I am going to order a can of that stuff, and we're going to do that for you guys and your entertainment.
Be sure to not be here.
You will be here. I'm not going to tell you till we do it. But Tony Crow watching from Peachtree Corners. Hey, we appreciate you tuning in. And again, this is going to be a great episode. So we're going, I hope you guys got your questions ready. And the last thing we're going to do before we jump into it, we're going to announce the fantasy winner for the Fish North Georgia Fantasy Fishing League that Blake has put together. And the winner is, and I hope you know who you are.
I hope he didn't put his name down there. So.
Gap 1978. So GAP 1978, whoever you are, you won. And so you just need to get in touch with us real quick. So we got our first question right there, Mr. Payne. Let's just jump right on it. Do you ever use live bait for anything?
I would say almost never. Sometimes if I have an elderly client or somebody, I've had a deal where a fella brought his 80-something-year-old dad, or another time when a guy brought his 7 or 8-year-old and maybe had trouble casting. It was in winter. I have used some trout before, but it's nothing that I normally do. I think I haven't used any trout in really in about 3 years or 4, but I had a fella about a month and a half ago that brought trout with him. And he brought his wife, and they fished with me several times. He brought trout, and we caught 39 that day, and he caught 0 on trout.
Oh, wow. There you
go. He had trout out the whole time, and at varying depths around where we were catching them, but he got a bite or two, but he never caught one. So a lot of days when they're not biting, I thought, I wonder if you put some live bait down there, if they'd bite it. And I'm sure they would a lot of times, but that day they didn't bite it very good for him. He wound up carrying most of them home with him.
I got you. And for those of you that do not know who is sitting across from me, Mr. Bill Payne, I guess you're fishing currently is Carter's and Allatoona, where you're spending most of your time, but you have fished pretty much all over the Southeast in one form or fashion.
I have
for quite a while now. I'm not going to give you age or anything, but you've got some experience on you. How about that?
I've been on a long road, that's for sure.
That's right. So definitely, guys, you keep the questions coming because we got a lot of stuff going on. We got another, let's see, how about that? Ronald Pendergrass has got a question for you. Mr. Payne, do you change line size when you fish Allatoona versus Carter's?
No. Of course, I've got 3 dozen rods in the boat, so I don't have to do much changing. But
right.
No, both lakes, Allatoona is a little different in the winter. You get a good bit of stained water and so forth. So there are some power techniques with bait casting where I might use 15 or 18 pound line, but at Carter's, if I were using a bait caster, I might have a lot of 12 on, but I've got rods for all that, so I really get by with a minimum different number of pound test lines.
But you're prepared for everything if you need it.
I'm prepared, but
right.
I don't really need that many different ones. Most of them are interchangeable.
Gotcha. And I knew this question was coming quick. What line size do you use for, say, a jig and then a shaky head?
Well, on a jig, I'm usually using a casting rod, and I usually use 15-pound fluoro. And on a shaky head, I'm using a spinning rod most of the time, and I always use 10-pound braid with an 8-pound leader. And I use that for almost all my finesse tactics, whether it be a Ned rig or a wacky rig Cinco, a shaky head. Just about on everything, I use that 10-pound line with an 8-pound leader. I have some clients when we're fishing top water, I have some rods rigged with, maybe 30-pound braid, and I might put a 15-pound leader on it for top water,
right.
mono. But typically, really finesse, any of the finesse tactics, I'm using 10-pound braid with an 8-pound leader.
Okay.
Questions are flying in.
They are flying. There's actually one right for the, how deep have you had to fish to catch spots on Allatoona?
I maybe about as deep as ever, might be 50 or.
I mean, you've been all over that lake, so I mean, you
50 or 60. I might catch some on a spoon in the fall that deep, but most of the time it's not nearly that deep.
You talking about spoon? You talking about a jigging spoon or
a jigging spoon? And but normally it would be more in the. I'd even consider 30 and 40 deep at Allatoona, but different than Carter's.
Absolutely. But now I've heard here recently I had somebody actually went out with you on Carter's within the last couple of weeks. I think he was saying you were catching them in 80, 80 foot.
Yeah.
That deep.
What was you doing in 80 foot of water?
We could be sitting in 80 or 90 or.
I think he said it was with a shaky head. Did you throw a shaky head that deep?
Well, I don't like to, that's for sure. I have, but I don't want to. But mostly on a swim bait.
Could you imagine throwing a shaky head 100-something foot right there?
No.
Okay, of course. Now Cooper McDonald, he kind of answered that. Do you throw braid to fluoro? And that was the answer. Yes,
yes.
You do that.
I do.
Do you ever just throw straight fluoro?
Not anymore. I mean, I have and I used to, but really, I don't.
Is it just easier with the guide service as far as just to keep the leaders going like that?
It's just more efficient. It's easier. It's easier for clients that haven't fished a lot to use too. They can feel the bites when you're fishing really deep, and really it's a cost savings thing too, really.
Absolutely.
So you're doing it with everything, casting, spinning, and everything.
Well, not casting.
Okay, I know a lot of people, they'll put 20-30 pound braid on their casting rods and then put a leader on. I don't like doing that though. Some people use it for top water, and I have, but the only time I really want to use braid on a casting rod's when I'm around grass, like at Gunner's Frog
or
and
Chickamauga, punching grass or throwing a frog.
Right.
And other than that, I can get by without braid on a casting outfit.
This is a good question considering given your experience. And I don't know if there's too many places around here you haven't fished yet, but if you were going to a lake tomorrow that you've never fished, How would you fish that? How would you approach that?
Well, if it were tomorrow, we're still, even though we've got the hope of spring coming in here,
Right? Yeah, the hope.
soon.
It's trying to peak through.
We're still, even though we've had some warm days, I still consider that we're in late winter. It is early pre-spawn, so it depends on a lot of things. First, the seasonal deal, which I just mentioned, but then other than that, it depends on the type lake. Is it a shallow lake? Is it a lowland type lake? Or is it a highland reservoir? Does it have spotted bass? Does it have largemouth? There's a lot of things there that are indicators on what you probably need to do. If I were going to go just on say it's not a clear water highland reservoir, maybe it's got a little grass in it or not. Right now is a great time. Early spring, late winter, rattle baits like a rattle trap or a red eye shad, a chatterbait, whether it's stained or clear, a chatterbait can work, and a jerk bait would be a big thing for me.
I got you.
And those moving type baits, even though it's winter, in the kind of water I'm talking about, it could be really, really effective. This weekend, I was at a place like that, and we caught fish on the chatterbait. We caught him on a jerk bait. I didn't catch him on a rattle trap, but and even some on a shaky head. But if I were going to a highland reservoir, relatively clear water, I'd have to be looking at things like shaky heads, finesse swim baits, underspins. Might even pull out a spy bait,
right?
And possibly a drop shot. Although I do a lot of other things. I've fished a drop shot a lot, and I like to fish it okay, but I've been able to cover those fish with different techniques that I use they're a little more versatile, and I don't have to pull out a drop shot.
Gotcha. I
can catch those with a swim bait, using it like a Demiki rig. I mean, you don't have to have a specific rod set up for a Demiki rig. You can take your swim bait and drop it
and
right
just
on
drop it
fish.
down and just do that. Yeah.
And in fact, the fellow was not doing much more than that won the BASS tournament up at Loudon, the elites this weekend. I mean, he wasn't using a swim bait. He was using a shad bait, but a little boot tail swim bait would accomplish about the same thing.
About the same thing. Okay, right there. So let's see. There was one right before that. Let's get Thurman's right there. Yeah. What is your personal best spot?
I caught a 7.2 in 1982 at Allatoona, night fishing.
What'd you catch it on?
A Texas rig worm out of a brush pile.
On a Texas rig worm.
That's a long
something
time
totally
ago.
different. That's what is your biggest one that you've ever put a client on?
672.
So almost as big.
Well,
was that the one you showed us the picture of upstairs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That thing was a tank.
We caught
huge gut.
We caught 2 over 6 that day on a floating fly.
On a floating fly.
Fella, he drove over here. He lived in Spartanburg, South Carolina. He got up from his house early that morning, drove over here. We fished and we caught several. He caught 2 big ones. We got through and he got in his car and drove back home.
That's it.
That was a long day for him. But,
that's awesome. All right. So where does Bill catch all those big smallmouths? Now, again, not your specific area, but
well, I've caught a lot of smallmouth on the Tennessee River, below Chickamauga Dam. I've caught some in the lake. I've caught some at Watts Bar, and I've caught them at Nantahala, and
but mostly up in Tennessee.
Mostly, it's close. It's a less than an hour from me.
Where you are, that's close. So yeah.
So. I've caught them at Pickwick, but
what about Nickajack? I heard there's pretty good smallmouth fishing up in Nickajack.
technically below Chickamauga Dam in downtown Chattanooga, that's technically Nickajack.
Okay.
When I'm talking about the tail race of Chickamauga Dam, and that's Nickajack, upper Nickajack.
Upper Nickajack. Okay. At what water temp do you start looking shallow? And I'm going to guess that's more of an Allatoona thing than it is Carter's, or is it?
Not necessarily, but I don't, maybe I'm not as smart as other people, but I don't really key on water temperature that much.
Okay. So what do we key on?
Now relative to a body of water, I will notice if there's certain areas that are a few degrees warmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I do get excited when I start seeing water moving up at 50 and warming through the lower 50s, but it doesn't matter. I think the length of the day, I think the fish have a lot of ways to know that it kind of triggers their instinct to begin moving shallow. And I think the length of the day plays a big part. And I can tell you, I don't care if it's 46, but the temperature is trending up to 52, or if it's at 52 and it's trending up to 56 or 57. I think that movement in the temperature moving up is more important just about than just whatever the water temperature is.
So it's not really a specific temperature, you're saying, just the trend.
It's just not so simple. I would like to be able to say, and I have people in the boat that says, boy, when it gets 54, I always can start catching them on a buzz bait. And maybe they can, but I just don't feel that confident in any given static temperature to mean that I'm going to catch them or not. Right. I think the water conditions, the weather conditions, and whether the water is on an upward trend, I think that's what really triggers the best bites. It's not the only time you catch them, but I just think that movement upward in temperature makes more difference than it hitting a certain.
Now, I'm going to ask you this, because you fish primarily, again, Carter's and Allatoona. Does it affect one of the lakes different than the other? Like the fish at Allatoona, that upward trend, are they quicker to get on it than they are at Allatoona, it being so deep? Or?
I think that they are, and I think you got the stained water factor comes more into play at Allatoona. And
right.
Of course, stained water can hold heat a lot better and
heats up quicker.
And you see those trends, and you see a lot of fish move up at given times. I was on the lake last week one day, and it got warmer and warmer, and in the afternoon, I guess that day we caught between 30 and 40 fish, and you could just tell that they were moving up on long flat points.
Right.
And we just began to target those, and we just caught a few on every one of them that really laid out really flat, and we might have had the boat in 12 or 14 feet of water casting up to 3 or 4, and catching them on a jerk bait, and we're catching them. I mean,
just catching them.
Jacking
them. Guys, keep your questions coming. I know we got a lot of questions, and I'm going to try to get to every single one of them. So just be patient with us, and we're going to do our best to get to you. Now, Michael Temples wants to know, do you depend on your electronics to help find those fish? If it's a new lake to you, do you hit the points and run over them to see if any structure shows up? So electronics, and how do you use them?
Well, I use electronics a lot. I mean, especially in the fall and winter, if I'm looking for bait and I'm looking for schools of fish. But probably more times of the year than not, I'm using the mapping as much as anything. I want to, depending on the season, depending on what I think the fish are doing, I like to find those points that run out the flattest, the further out into the lake before they drop off, if they're in the depth range that I'm wanting to target. Mapping can be an important thing. I had a fella that got me to come down. He lived on a 300-acre housing development built on a lake down below Atlanta. And
Right.
I went down there. There was no map. I didn't know anything. I didn't really know what was in the lake. But one of the first things that I would do in a situation like that is I've got hummingbird units, and it's amazing how Auto Chart Live works, where you can make your own maps on a body of water you don't even know. With just a little bit of idling around, you can build your own contour map, and after you've built it, you got a lot greater sense of where the points are, where there's humps, where the actual channel is, and all that can, when you're on an unknown body of water, that's golden.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
That's not something I had used a lot, but that's powerful technology. It's almost unbelievable that those units can do that. But,
it's just instant information.
I mean, it's really great. So really, I do use sonar a lot, but I use mapping a lot. I do a lot of night fishing in the summer, and I could literally turn my sonar off if I just had my map up there. Lake Master mapping is what I use, so you can adjust for lake level offset. It'll adjust the depths that are on the map. You can set your depth range highlight, and you can actually fish by that and not even look at your sonar.
And just target that depth range.
Having the map and knowing where you are on structure and where you are on the break lines and stuff is probably more important than what you might see on your sonar in the summertime on some of these lakes. Now, up on the Tennessee River, that's a different deal. If you're ledge fishing, I'm not even going to fish till I see a school of fish on my sonar. But now, Lanier, Allatoona at night, Carter's, I'm more interested in where I am in relation to the contours, the humps, so that I can work my bait over those likely spots. I'm not looking for fish at night, and sometimes in the daytime, I'm not really worried about seeing fish that I would run over with a sonar. I'm fishing my waypoints that I've marked brush, or I'm fishing natural structure that runs out before it drops into the channel, some sort of cover like that. So, I'm looking at sonar all the time, but I think in the fall and winters when I really key on it, because I'm really wanting to see those fish.
Right.
Now, live imaging, that's a whole different issue, and a lot of people are using it now, and there's been a lot of tournaments won in the last year or so from people looking at fish on live, the live sonar like Garmin and what Lowrance has out. Humminbird they'll have theirs out, I'm sure, this year probably, and it's become more of an important thing, but you can't just rely on that.
Right. I like that. So you're kind of learning the lake. That's the best way, looking for the natural stuff like that. So could you give me your opinion on the Demiki rig?
I think it's a fun way to catch them. I mean, when you first get into fishing a jigging spoon, seeing fish on your sonar down there, dropping a spoon to them and catching them, that was exciting to me years ago, and it still is.
Right.
But a Demiki rig is a much more finesse type way of dropping them, and when you can see fish on your sonar and drop a little rig down there on top of them and stop it, and you see that fish move up and get it. Or I had this happen the other day. I dropped a Demiki rig down on 3 or 4 fish that were in about 45 feet of water, and I could see 3 or 4 more about 10 feet under them, and I watched my bait go down, and I stopped it, and the fish that I dropped it to didn't really react, but I saw one coming up from that bottom group that came right through those 3 and got it.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
It's an exciting way. It's video game fishing. I mean, yeah, that's fun. I like it. I mean, it's great fun.
Absolutely.
That's a good time.
All right. So Eric had a kind of a question too. He's going to a Clear Highland Reservoir this weekend. Jerk bait a good choice for the smallies?
I would say it could be. Yeah, it could be. I don't know where you're going or how cold it is and so forth, but you know,
what's the name of that lake, Josh, that he's got up there? Everybody talks about it. North Carolina, Appalachia. I guarantee that's where he's going. Appalachia.
Well, yeah, I would. If I were going to Appalachia, I'd have a jerk bait on deck. I'd have a swim bait on deck, and I'd have a jig.
Okay.
And I would expect to catch them
on all those things right there. Your buddy Adam Higgins, and I tell you,
Adam.
The first time I ever heard your name was from Adam.
Yeah,
Adam was telling us about it at Stamp Creek one time. He was helping us, Josh and I. But do you have any tips for Parksville Lake? It's a gorgeous place, but I'm finding it difficult to fish. Have you ever fished there?
I've fished there many times.
All right, you got any tips for him right now that would help him?
Well, assuming that the water's clear, and I'm sure down lake it probably is, a drop shot is a really good tool. You can mark fish and drop a bait to them and catch them. I've caught them on swim baits good there. There is a lot of timber in the lake, so you can't just cast the swim bait and work it on bottom everywhere, but you can catch them on that. I've caught them good on jerk baits this time of year.
You got a particular jerk bait you like to use?
Well, in the winter, my favorite jerk bait, I hate to say, I'm like a lot of people. I kind of wince at paying $25 for a jerk bait, but a Mega Bass 110 plus one is a great jerk bait in the winter. I've had great success with it, and I used to use Lucky Craft pointers all the time, and I got a bunch of them, and I'll still use them. But that Mega Bass plus one just gets a little deeper, and it's a really good bait. I like it a lot better than just the regular Vision 110, but that's just me.
Just like to get it down because it gets down in that strike
just
zone
a little bit
better.
Deeper. Now, there's a lot of jerk baits that'll get deeper than that bait will.
Right.
Like a Stacy or even the Strike King jerk bait with the deeper version. I mean, they'll all get deeper than that 110 plus one, but that's just the one that I like the best in most cases.
Okay, I got you there. How about, let's see.
21.
Let's go. Let me ask you, if you didn't have any electronics right now, how hard would it be for you to catch fish? And that's a question that a lot of people want to know with all these fancy electronics.
Well, I'm certain that you don't have to have all those electronics, but I know I've kind of built up a reliance on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If I didn't have my electronics right now, since I've kind of been spoiled to them, it'd be like the day if you wear a watch and the day you forget to put your watch on and you go to work, you probably look at your wrist 100 times a day, but it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd probably be looking down to see the sonar,
and it's not
there. But all I'd say is you'd have to really use your instincts a lot more. Of course, even my first boat, I had a flasher on it way back when, and I relied on that flasher to tell me at least how deep I was at the time. But no doubt, having those electronics and looking at sonar and depending on them to find the bait and find schools of fish kind of spoil you. And sometimes I think it reduces your instincts, and you're looking for that when way back when people didn't have that, and they used their wits they looked at the bank and they would see, you know, the way that bank slopes out. I know there's a point running out here,
right,
or there's a vein of rocks running off the bank. I bet you those rocks run on out here, and excuse me. But I guess if I didn't have the electronics, I would be looking at points. I'd be looking, I would be using my eyes to visualize what was happening out in the lake based on what was coming off the bank. And I realized there's places where points run out and you wouldn't even know it, but I might not find those, but
Right.
there are obvious bluffs, rock formations, points. If I thought fish were in ditches, back in pockets, I mean, there's still a way to do it. You'd have to use your lure to discover what's out there versus looking at it on imaging and so forth. And it would be slower, but that's what people used to do. And that's what you can do if you don't have electronics. It's not, I guess in today's thought about everything, you'd say, well, I'm at a great disadvantage. And I guess overall you would be, but it wouldn't be impossible. And some people still, rely on what they can see and what they can discern from looking at the bank and knowing whatever they can see. Or if you were out on Allatoona when it was 15 feet down, you might remember where there were different humps and places and
paying
which
attention
way
to it and all that. Yeah.
You just have to really use your instincts and your memory, and you'd have to use your mind a lot more, I guess.
Gotcha. I got you.
And your imagination. And
that makes perfect sense to me. Make sure if you get a question, I'll jump in here at any time.
I like this question that Eric asked. Yeah, that Eric asked. It's are there any discontinued baits that you still wish are made? I mean, I've talked to a lot of the old timers, and there's a ton of baits that they want brought back. I mean, is there anything super specific that you'd like to see brought back?
Now, you collect baits. I know we've had this conversation before.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's probably a few. I've used a lot of Rebel humpies and deep wears, and I've still got a lot of those. And even though there's a lot of inconsistencies on those humpies, when you get one that works really well, I mean, that's still a dynamite bait and you can catch them now. I've got so many, I don't care if they bring it back or not, but
that's right.
But another bait that I don't think is easily duplicated. Of course, I don't get the chance to fish a lot of shallow water that much anymore. But Bagley's square bills that they made back in the 60s, the BB2, BB3, they're fat square bill balsa baits. I know that there's a ton of balsa baits on the market and people are making them, and I've got some of all of them, but none of them work as good as the original Bagley's with the brass hardware and so forth. Now, granted, a good day of catching big fish on those things, you'll destroy one of them. I mean, it'll get that. If that eye ever gets loose in the balsa, there's no tuning it, there's no nothing, it's going to run crazy. But that's a bait. I guess if I had to say that if there's one bait that I wish I could get my hands on, it'd be those original Bagleys. And you can still buy them, but some of those things sell for hundreds of dollars.
Right. Yeah.
Even one that's been beat up and used might be $25 or $30. And when you get it, you don't know if there's some inconsistencies in those. They're not all created equal. Some work better than others.
Gotcha. That's interesting right there. What's the biggest smallmouth you've caught in Georgia and at what lake?
The biggest smallmouth I've caught in Georgia has been on Blue Ridge, and I've caught 2 or 3 around the 6 pound range. But
Good Lord.
But that's been back.
That's a long time ago.
That's a nice small.
Well, I don't know. I caught a 5.5 pounder up there summer before last at night. So
are they going to come back like they were? Or you think it's done?
I have no idea, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I know they're starting to stock them
in the lake.
Gotcha.
I would love to see it come back, but I just don't know if that stocking was big enough to make a difference and how they're going to compete with the spots that are there. you know.
What do you think if they kept a stocking program and, you know, you had guys going up there, they're catching spots, just throwing them out? You think eventually that would happen? Because I know they've got the signs up there. They ask you to keep them. But if you think every time somebody put their boat in the water and say they took out 5 to 10, everybody was doing it when they'd go, do you think it'd make a difference on that lake and they'd come back to what it used to be?
Well, I don't know if it'd ever come back, but I'm sure it would help. But
Yeah.
I just don't believe enough people
would do that.
I mean,
Take 'em.
I see the signs, and maybe I'm wrong, but when I go up there, even if I have a great day and were to catch 25 or 35, I usually am letting them go when I catch
Right,
them.
just because that's
I mean, I don't know. I wish the smallmouth fishery was still there, and I wish there was a way to restore it, but I'm not sure once you
you think we might have passed the point of no return on the lake.
and I don't know that to be a fact. I'm not a biologist, but I just, you know, once you leave the barn door open and the cows out, I don't know
Right.
if you can get it back up or not.
I got you. I totally get that. Let's see where we at now. So I think you kind of mentioned this earlier. Does Mr. Payne run Lowrance or hummingbird graphs?
Hummingbird.
And you were considered. Where am I at here?
Two-part question.
Oh, two-part question. And what does Mr. Payne think about Garmin Panoptics?
Well, I think it's a great tool. Gosh, I wouldn't mind having it on the front of my boat. I just would hate to have 3 graphs up front. It might
Right.
There might be something in the way up there, but
You gonna put one on the front when Hummingbird comes out?
When
first?
hummingbirds come out, will you have
well, if Hummingbird has one, I still won't add a graph. I'll probably split time between 360 and live
Gotcha.
imaging more than likely. Now, if money was no object, you know, maybe if it didn't mean anything, I'd put another one up there. But you know, I got a fortune in electronics on my boat anyway. And if I look at what my electronics cost, I've had boats that didn't cost that much. In my life.
I know. It's
Uh,
crazy.
but yeah, live imaging is great. I'd love to have it. I'm sure it would be fun to play with, but I couldn't help but noticing what Jacob Wheeler said. You know, he came close to winning the Red Crest tournament down there at Eufaula. His buddy Dustin Connell won, but he said one of the things that he said was I was relying so much on live imaging and fishing those brush piles that had fish around it that he said I got away from what my strengths are, and that is my intuition and my doing it without having that.
Right.
I kind of got mesmerized by that. I'm kind of paraphrasing. This is not his exact words, but he said I got keyed in on that, and I used up a lot of my time fishing for fish that I couldn't catch, when really I should have been covering more water and using my instinct and
Right.
experience to catch those fish. And I know people that have gotten live scope and they say, you know, I found this tree at Lanier and man, it had a bunch of spots in it. And I started casting and doing this, and an hour and a half later, I hadn't had a bite.
Right. Yeah.
So I told my buddy, I said, well, I've got a new name for that. That's called the distractor. That thing's going to distract you and use up all your time. But now on the other hand, we've all seen the tournaments on TV where the guys have seen those fish in the trees or seen the fish out in the timber. They work that jerk bait. They know when to stop it. They know how to get the fish's attention and more or less kind of make the fish bite. And that's when it works like you want it to. And I think you got to use good judgment with all that. You know, if the fish don't bite, it's like bed fishing. If you, I'm not a great bed fisherman, but you know, a lot of people have used up a lot of time in tournaments trying to catch a bed fish only to not ever catch it. And I think that if you can't make those fish bite, you can't trigger them. I don't care how many's out there. Sometimes there's only so much time you want to dedicate to that. You want to move on and go to somewhere where you can catch a fish. So there's good points and bad points, but it's just like everything else. That technology in the hands of a good fisherman is going to pay more dividends than it does with a person maybe that's not quite as skilled. They're going to know when to, same thing. When the Alabama rig hit the scene and there were people catching fish left and right, well, I couldn't help but notice in some of the tournaments, like at Chickamauga, that the guys that were the very best fishermen, they continued to have the very best catches.
Right.
It wasn't. Now, I do know of some cases where an Alabama rig was in the hands of maybe somebody not as skilled, and they landed on the fish and they made hay and they won tournaments. But still, all these things are good tools, whether it be an Alabama rig or live imaging or whatever. But there's more to it than just having that. I mean, you still got to know what to do with it and how to use good common sense with it. And but if you've got it and you use it and you learn how to use it and you learn how to notice what the reaction of the fish is to different baits and how to make them react and how to make a fish bite, you're going to do some good with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, I hope you're taking notes. All right. This man's giving out a lot of information tonight. So always the best episodes are the one where I talk the least. So we're having one of those tonight. That's absolutely awesome. Brian Baker, we're going to get a few more questions in here before our mid mark. What would you tell someone new to fish if they were to fish Allatoona, and maybe where to go and what to look for? So again, you're going to key in on the structure, kind of like what you've talked about.
Yeah, I guess if you mean right now, different times of year, I would say different things, but I would say right now, moving forward, I would probably look for fish in 15 feet and less. And as the spring comes on, it would be less than 15. But
when did they start filling Altoona back up? Are they starting to fill it now, or
it's coming back up? It got down to about 15 or 16, and I think today it was back up to about 7 feet below. The Corps has a plan. Their plan is to have it down 16 or 17 feet by January 1st each year, and their plan calls to have it full by June 1st. Now, rains or drought can play a big part in that, and sometimes we get these heavy rains in early spring and so forth, and we even have flooding conditions, and the lake, they can't keep it down hardly.
Right.
But I would right now, I would say fish shallow. I would say use any stain water to your advantage. I'm talking chatterbaits, spinner baits, crankbaits, even square bills in stained water, a jerk bait. And I would focus my search at 15 feet or less. I would have a jig in there. I would look for rock. I would look for flat places, stumps.
Right.
And as the spring progresses, you start talking about you're going to catch them on scroungers. You're going to catch them on swim baits. Shaky heads are always a good deal. A Ned rig's going to catch his fish now, but it'll even become a bigger player between now and summer. But I guess I would, the short answer is I would focus shallow. Of course, shallow to some people means different things. I'm not talking about 2 or 3 feet all the time necessarily, but I would work up to 2 or 3 feet.
But 15 feet and above on Altoona. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that shallow to you, Blake?
what?
What's shallow to you? What is shallow to you, honestly? Dirt.
Yeah. I
Me
like
too.
I like to pick a jig up or something I can flip, and I'm that 10 to 5 foot.
10 to 5
Yeah,
foot. Gotcha.
that's where I like to be. If I can catch fish, I'll fish that shallow year round. If I can catch them like that.
Yeah, that would be.
I know these highland reservoirs, stuff like that, I can't do it year round.
I'm just not as comfortable. Michael Temples, and then I'm gonna get back to Ron's question before we take a little bit of break here. You have talked about the long flat points a few times. Is that because the fish chase the bait up to the shallower water? What is it about those longer, flatter points that you like?
That's just a classic structure fishing thing on whether you're on lowland reservoir or highland reservoir. In the spring, a lot of times bait moves up shallower. The fish have a natural instinct to move shallow. They come out of the ditches this time of year on some of the lakes. More and more of them start showing up on the ends of these deep points. Mm-hmm. And as we get those warmer days, they just begin to move up shallower. And those flat places, normally, a steep bank is not going to, the sun's not going to penetrate and warm things like it is when you have a good flat place.
Right.
Of course, the shallower flat places are going to warm up faster than the mid-depth type places, but still, that's just a natural instinct for the fish to start moving up, moving toward the spawn. They're going to move up on these flat places and work on up and into the pockets and so forth. But a long flat point is a primary structure in almost any lake.
Gotcha.
Traditionally, and
right,
and it's happening now.
Right. That's awesome. What's your favorite? What is your least favorite local lake of all the lakes in Georgia or Tennessee? If you had one lake that you ain't crazy about fishing. That's a tough one, ain't it? Or maybe the one that's giving you the most trouble.
There's none of them that I can't think of one that I just say I don't like at all.
I can. Carter's.
Well, Carter's is tough.
It's hard for me.
I don't know. Heck, they can all give me trouble if I've been off of them a while and I just go one day or something. I mean, it's a challenge every day out there. Every day can be a little bit different. It kind of tickles me. I know it happens where people really get on a good bite and they're able to ride it for a while. But I think it happens to me less than it does anybody. It seems like whatever worked yesterday, you can just about bet when you go tomorrow,
it's going to be different.
I'm going to struggle if I have blinders on and say, well, I know I caught them this way yesterday and doggone it, I'm catching them this way today.
I got you. Yeah.
You got to be flexible. You got to adjust. And I fished I fished a good many multiple day tournaments. And I think if I had a criticism myself, I'm always able to go out and catch them good one day, but to catch them 2 times in a tournament really good.
Right.
I struggle as much as anybody probably
Gotcha.
or more.
I got you. I understand that. All right. So last question before the break. Do you choose clear water over stained? If you had your druthers. And I guess that depends on the lake.
It does. It depends on some other things. If it's fresh mud runoff in the winter, I want to get as far away from it as I can, and I'll take clear water. But in a lot of situations, spring rains, spring flooding type deals, if it's had time to stabilize and it's not just really so muddy that there's a lot of particles in the water and so forth, I love to fish stained water. Stained water gives you a great advantage. Some good moving baits work. The fish are going to be shallower in stained water, and some of the best catches I've ever had have been in conditions when the lake's gotten stained and a lot of fish move up, bait fish move up and hide in the stain.
Right.
I love stained water, but there would be cases when I'd try to get away from it. when it's really cold or something like that. But most of the time, if I have conditions like I'd want them, it involves some stained water if it could.
Okay. All right. Okay, guys. So we've been going about almost under an hour. You want to get you a drink? Yeah. Wet your whistle. I told you what we was getting ready to do here.
Yeah.
So, all right. Yeah. He'd still catch him, Barday. I totally believe that. So I told him earlier, we like to do this little thing here at Fish North Georgia on the show where we like to do our poetic reading. And, so he knows what's coming. I already told him he's got to read some song lyrics. All right. Then we're going to get right back to your questions, giving him a drink. Again, we're going to give away a True Grit prize package to the first person who gives me the artist and the title of this song. And I'm going to let Mr. Payne himself read this song. So he does not know what I'm giving him. Now, you ready for this?
I guess.
Okay.
I hope this is like Name That Tune. And somebody gets it really quick.
It's going to be. I hope they don't. I hope they don't. Now you can't read the name or the title right here. I'm running it out.
All right.
But you got to start with right beside where I put this star here, and you just start to listen. You may know the song. If you know the song, do not read it exactly like the song goes. But can you see that now?
Well, gosh, man, you got some small print.
I
here.
asked you how your eyeballs were.
Well, I got glasses somewhere, but
can you read that now?
Yeah. She sits alone waiting for suggestions. He's so nervous, avoiding all the questions. His lips are dry. Her heart is gently pounding. Don't you just know exactly what they're thinking? That should be enough. For
No, you keep going, man.
Let's see. His heart's beating like a drum. Is he gonna get this girl home? Well, soon, baby, we'll be all alone. Don't you just know exactly what they're thinking?
Keep on going, man.
Guys, where y'all at?
If you
Nobody's
want my
stopping us
body,
Listen
and
to
you
this.
think I'm sexy.
There we
There it
go.
is.
Ah, somebody got it. Clifford Wright.
Well, what is it?
Do You Think I'm Sexy by Rod Stewart. Oh, was there somebody before that?
Speed, it looks like.
Speed. So Do You Think I'm Sexy, Rod Stewart? Okay, I'm sorry. You almost got to the chorus. Read the chorus right there.
Let's see.
Listen to that. Come on, read this. This is great. You're right there. If you want my body.
If you really, where are we?
This is
If you want my body and you think I'm sexy, come on, sugar, tell me so. I've heard that song a million times, and I couldn't tell you that if I had to. If you really need me, just reach out and touch me. Come on, honey. I didn't know I was going to be doing porn over here. Soft porn.
Oh my goodness, you're great. That was awesome. That was absolutely fantastic. All right, so hey, no, which one? Who said that? Which one? Blake Payne as a son. This is freaking hilarious. So there you go. That's just listen, I'm not gonna lie. I remember from the podcast how Bill was kind of slow talker, so I picked that song out just for you.
Well,
I knew.
I appreciate that.
So who won again? Was it Justin?
Justin.
All right. So anyway, what was the other fellow that I said won? I called out Clifford Wright too.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably made Clifford excited, and then I said took it away from him. So Clifford, listen, Clifford, if you send, I know Justin, Clifford, if you send me, I'm gonna give Justin some stuff anyway for the Fishing for Words. Clifford, if you send me the your address and stuff, I'm gonna send you some stuff right there. So do it on Fish North Georgia. Instant message me at Danny Pruitt. Either way, wow, never saw this side of my friend Bill Payne. Too funny, Dan Combs.
Well, they brought me
Barday
over.
put.
They brought me over here to make fun of me.
No, I
and
didn't. Listen,
They're getting me.
Stephen Barday, you made him blush. See,
I'm doubting that.
that's true too. I absolutely thought. I listen. I was up there. I was remembering the way you talk, and I said, I have got to pick out. And that song hit me. I'm like, this is the perfect song for tonight.
You should have got a country song. Somebody my
country
voice.
I know it, but I didn't want you to sing country. I want you to sing Rod Stewart. So, all right. So anyway, that was great. That was one of the better ones. I like that. Did you like that? just reach out and touch me. All right, so here we go. All right, so now we're back on to let's get back to the questions. I'm going to ask this question while we get everybody rolling back again. Of the two lakes, which do you like to guide on the best, Carter's or Allatoona? Personally, not which one you make the most money on, but personally, which one do you like the best?
Well, that's questionable right there.
Right.
But I like both of them, and when Carter's is on and I'm catching them, it's as good as it can be.
Right.
And we catch bigger ones generally, but as far as a fun lake to go fish, Allatoona is hard to beat because of the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think numbers wise, and somebody wanting to learn a technique, it's easier on Allatoona to catch fish. Now, they may not be prize winners.
Right.
Now, you got people like Bardet on there that are catching 12 and 13 pounds every week.
Right.
That might not sound like much, but I guarantee you that's hard to do.
That is on Allatoona.
And it's very hard to do.
Right.
I can't do it most of the time, but as far as a fun lake to go and catch 20, 30, 40 fish, something that a kid or even a grown-up that's learning a technique, getting bites and setting the hook and reeling a fish in is more important, even if they only weigh a pound or a pound and a half, versus going to Carter's and catching a 3 or 4 pounder if you only get a few bites in a day.
Right.
I mean, so Allatoona is a great place to learn to fish. I mean, but it's another thing to learn to catch big fish, bigger weights.
Right.
And I'm talking about over 10 pounds on a consistent basis when you go all the time. Right. It's a lot harder to do that. The thing that I have most people calling me saying, I can catch all these fish at Allatoona, but gosh, I can't compete in these tournaments because I can't catch 11, 12, 13 pounds. And I have to tell them, be honest. Well, I don't know if I can help you with that or not.
Absolutely. I got it. I'm going to ask this question because it comes up every episode we do. I do not like Whopper Ploppers. Do you throw Whopper Ploppers?
A Whopper Plopper is one of the best.
Oh my goodness.
Best baits that's come out in the past 5 years on spotted bass lakes and clear water. And I'd say particularly at Altoona, it's just about replaced the buzzbait bite. I mean,
what makes a Whopper Plopper so good?
Well, I think number one, for people that are just learning to fish it, it's if you cast a buzzbait out there and it sinks and it takes you a minute to get it up on top, it floats. You can work it a lot of different ways. You can twitch it. You can do a steady retrieve. You can burn it. It's very versatile in that way. I don't know. It's I guess the worst thing about a Whopper Plopper that I'd say is so many people are using it now that it's probably not as effective as it was 3 or 4 years ago.
They just seen it so much.
But it's a great lure and it's easy to work, and all you got to do is wind it. You don't have to walk the dog with it. It's not something you got to learn how to retrieve it. It's I think it's I mean, we've caught hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fish on them, and people that aren't experienced have caught big fish on them. They're just it's just a pretty good bait.
I'm just gonna have to break down and start fishing with them, I guess. Right there.
Keep throwing that buzzbait.
Keep throwing that buzzbait. Where would you go where you could catch a smallmouth right now? If you had to pick one lake right now, anywhere to go catch a smallmouth, I'm sure it's gonna be a Tennessee lake.
I don't know. I would, Hiawassee,
okay,
Nantahala, the Tennessee River, those would probably be the closest ones that I could think of that would be a good place.
Good place just to catch a smallmouth. Period.
Maybe Watts Bar Lake.
Okay.
The tail races. I mean, of any Tennessee River lake, more or less. Now, I'm not saying it's the best fishing, because I've got a friend that has a house up at Kingsport, and he fishes in that area, and he's sending me smallmouth pictures all the time, all winter.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just the places I know when I go, but obviously on up in that vicinity toward Kingsport and up there's a lot of smallmouth evidently.
I got you. What's that next question from Adam W. Fishing? Bill, what advice do you have for targeting bigger fish?
Well, generally, if I just had to make a blanket statement, I would say bigger baits. If I was just wanting to just give one look at it, I'd say, if I was exclusively wanting to catch big fish, I'd probably be more of a big swim bait fisherman, hard swim baits, glide baits, things like that. But for myself, since I do not fish those a lot, I think I search out the prime structure. Like if I'm fishing for the bigger fish at Carter's, I'm looking for the best structure. Basically, that's out on long, flat places where it drops off real sharp.
Mm-hmm.
If I was at Altoona and I was specifically just trying to catch big fish, I would probably make sure that I was in stained water. I would make sure I was in places where I thought largemouth bass would frequent more than spotted bass. Most of the time I'm fishing for spotted bass, just the way I fish and where I'm fishing. And some guys can do pretty good targeting the kind of places that largemouth bass frequent, back shallow or back in pockets, real heavy cover, things like that. But like if I used to fish a lot of tournaments at Lake Weiss and catch some pretty big fish over there, some pretty big stringers of fish, and competed really well. And I used the same baits that I caught smaller fish on sometimes, but flipping a jig, spinner baits, buzz baits, those were baits that accounted for a lot of big fish around heavy cover. I don't know. I'm probably not doing a very good job of explaining it, but I mean, I do go out and try to catch big fish. There's ways to and places that the problem when I'm guiding, I'm fishing for bites and fishing for positioning the boat to where I think people have the best chance to get bites. Now, if I really want to try to catch a bigger fish, there's some certain structures and some certain deep water places I fish. The problem is that the bigger the fish, the lower the percentage of getting a bite, period, might be.
Right.
And so I don't spend a lot of time doing that. Now, if I'm fishing in a tournament, I will try to mix some of that in. But the problem is I could fish all day in some of these places and not get a bite. And then on another day, I could catch 2 or 3 big fish.
Right.
But I guess I can't dial it in enough with enough probability to hang my hat on it. I'll just tell you, there's some huge fish that live around marinas, but you're not going to catch them a lot of or at least I can't catch them all the time, but I see a lot of big fish around marinas, and sometimes that's all I do is see them.
Right.
I don't catch them.
I got you.
I think that's a high percentage to catch a big fish, but it's a low percentage overall to catch a fish.
A fish, right.
So, you know, it used to be years ago that in the fall you could run up the river and catch a big stringer of fish at Lake Allatoona. Now I can go up the river and catch some fish, and there's some tournaments won up there, but it doesn't produce the big stringers that it once did.
Right. Okay. Do you ever catch or target largemouth on Carters or Allatoona on your trips? Do you specifically target largemouth?
The answer is no.
Okay.
I don't.
And is that going back again to the bites, trying to get the bites for the client?
Most of the people, now, if I had somebody that was just dead set on trying to do that, I mean, we'd formulate a day to where to try to make something like that happen. But most people, they're not wanting to fish for just a few bites in a day.
Right. They're paying you money.
And, they want to have some action. They want to have their, they want to get bit. And, that's normally what we're doing most days, you know.
Right. And I will say this, I had a question that was back up where Michael Temples was asking about your rates and all that stuff. At the end of the how much is a trip and all that? How long is it for? So at the end of the program, Michael, Bill will give out his number and all that. I just suggest you call him and handle it that way, because I'm sure there's different things for different scenarios and stuff like that, instead of one blanket answer on that.
Yeah, Michael, just give me a call, 706-280-2305, and we'll see what you're wanting to do. And I'll my number is 706-280-2305. You can message me or call me at that number. I'll be happy to tell you everything about a trip and how long and so forth.
You can find him on Facebook too. And actually, that's where he posts all his pictures. That's where I steal all these pictures from. So he's got some big ones on there. Let's see. Let's get back on the questions. Pop on back up a little bit. I know you posted that. There was a question. I think it was Daniel Duckett. If we can go back up, or let's see. After the rain tonight, what would you use to fish for spots in the morning? After the rain at Carter. So after a rainy night, does it make any difference how you fish the following morning? And you know what? This is what I picture you, because you're pretty smart and he's very smart. I can see you down the line. This is you. Just letting you to pay attention, because you're going to be doing a podcast down the line when you're a little, after you got a little more experience.
Start fishing a little more, get my boat put back together.
But you're smart, you know. So
yeah, I'm sitting here soaking everything in, because
there's a lot.
Yeah, I like to listen.
There's a lot.
Well, as far as the rain, if it rained tonight and I went in the morning, I'd probably, the smart answers, I would look for some places where there's some runoff coming into the lake, creating, washing in some stuff, and target that. That's what I'd tell you if I was reading the book or the magazine. Right. It sounds really good, but the fact is I'd probably get to the lake and I would look around to see if the rain had any real effect on the watercolor much. If it did have some, I might target some of that off color just a little bit. If it was stained enough, even I might look a lot shallower, some chatterbait, spinnerbait, something like that. But more times than not, if it's just rained overnight, it's not going to do that much to Carter's Lake, and nothing much is going to change with it. And if you've been catching fish in the ditches, you're going to go back out there and probably catch them in the ditch again.
Right.
If you've been catching fish out on structure, you're probably going to catch them again, and it's probably not going to mean very much.
Well, there's a lot of guys, when they see stained water, they completely go the opposite way. I mean, you've been doing this a lot longer than probably me and Danny combined, a lot more fishing. What do you think it is that detours people from fishing stained water and thinking that they need to go to clear water to have a better day. You know, I used to be that guy back when I got my first boat when I was 18. Tried to find clean water. But as I've progressed and everything, I've realized, hey, you know, I like to find that dirty water. Why do you think there's still people out there that won't even go into dirty water?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it depends on where you are. You know, there are some places around the country, maybe in Florida and maybe some other places, where if you get stained water in a place, it just ruins it, and you want to search for that cleaner water.
There's a lot of guys, they don't know the difference between blown out and just stained. They can see stained water and go, oh, that's blown out.
Well, blown out, I want to stay away from that too. But now that's where there's trash all in the water, and you can almost see the particles of dirt in the water. And
right.
It's just,
you got logs floating by the boat.
It's cold.
Yes.
But you'd be surprised at how good fish can bite in a heavily stained water.
Especially crankbaits and spinner baits. You know, the closer to pre-spawn, I'm picking up a big spinner bait and I'm trying to find some nasty water because I'm looking for those big bites. I'm not doing that in clear water. I'm not going down throwing a big Colorado blade in clear water.
You know, the fact is, the more stained the water, the shallower the fish get. And typically when it's stained, they're going to get around something hard. They're going to get around hard cover, and they're going to be shallow. And a lot of, you know, it's that old reaction bite. You pull a big spinner bait by a big stump that's got a fish on it,
he's going to look at it.
He's probably going to grab it. I mean,
and a lot of people that don't understand hard structure, we're talking, you know, we're talking laydowns, big stumps, rocks, anything that a fish can get up beside, they'll be there. Especially like up on the Tennessee River and stuff. They've got the pole docks. They will sit up on every pole under a dock. We've had days where you pitch at every pole, you get bit with a jig.
You like throwing jigs? Because you sound like a more of a moving bait kind of fella.
I do. You know, there's sometimes when the jig bite is just off the hook. It's good. You're gonna get bit on little rock outcroppings, and my son watching this and commenting, he loves to drag a football jig on the Tennessee River. And if we even talk, we don't go fishing that much. He works all the time. But if we do go fishing, one of his first questions is, well, is it a time when we can drag a jig?
Right. So that's what he wants to do.
So that's what he likes doing. But a jig is fun. I'm probably not as big a jig fisherman as some people. At Lake Wise, back when I used to flip a lot and fish the tournaments over there, flipping a jig was a way to get a big bite. But you could always get more bites on plastic. But and it's not that you couldn't catch a big one on plastics. I've caught a lot of them on beavers and different stuff. But a jig just seemed like the smaller ones left that alone a lot of times, and that was just a way to get a big bite. And a jig, you know, there's times it's a lot easier. Like if you fish the grass at Gunnersville, it's easier to fish plastic and punch with plastic than it is to fish a 1 ounce jig. Right. But there are times when a 1 ounce jig fished in that heavy grass, it breaks through, that it just gets bit. Now, fishing that 1 ounce jig and fishing it in grass, I have to say it wears me down after a few hours. It's just a lot.
I get wore down just flipping. Just flipping wears me out.
Yeah.
But a jig is a great bait, and a lot of people really put it to work.
They do,
and catch a lot of big fish with a jig. It's known as a big fish bait.
Gotcha. Where we at on the questions here? Never been to Tuna, but with that being said, why do they call it the Dead Sea?
Well, I think a lot of people used to struggle with that lake, but it's kind of a joke to people that fish there all the time. It's not the Dead Sea. You can catch more numbers at Allatoona than just about anywhere you go around here.
It's just hard to run across a good.
But I mean, I understand a lot of people, especially some people, fishing to them is a summertime activity, not a year-round thing. And you go out there in the daytime in the summer, yeah, you're going to probably have a rough time. Might seem like the Dead Sea, but but I always, most people that fish it a lot, they kind of just laugh at the Dead Sea deal, but that's
just something that's somebody said and it's kind of stuck a little bit. This is a pretty good question. I kind of got an idea in my head what you might say. What's the one thing the average angler can improve on?
What is the one thing the average angler can improve on? Well, I would, I don't want to sound like I know it all or anything, because I'm not, but I would say mental attitude.
Oh, okay. All right.
Everybody can cast. Everybody can get the fishing report and know that fish have been caught on a jig or they've been caught on Ned rigs, but a lot of people get out on the water and they don't get a bite in a while, and they say, well, they're just not going to bite today. They were catching the other day, and it may be even a tough day where it's hard to get a bite, but you can be defeated mentally real easy, and it'll make a difference in whether you catch fish or not.
Right. Okay.
And really, I think you got to have a positive mental attitude. You got to have a tough mental attitude, and you got to just hammer at it. And a lot of people, they don't know if they're working a bait right. Maybe they haven't had any success with a bait, and they fish it a while, and then they say, well, I haven't got a bite. I don't know if I'm doing it right. Evidently, I'm not doing it right. So I don't know. Maybe from where I'm coming from, that it might not make sense to everybody, but I just say the mental attitude about going fishing and enjoying the search and staying with it, and using what nowadays there's so much information online about techniques. They show you how they're doing it. The only thing missing is time on the water. And time on the water is important, because that's when you really do develop the confidence. You can hear about somebody doing it, or even watch them on video and doing it.
Right.
And you can be out there, and in a few minutes, you haven't caught anything. You're doubting what you're doing. You're doubting if you know what you're doing. You're doubting if you know how to do it correctly, or you're doing it at the wrong place. And I would just say mental attitude and being prepared to grind. And that means casting and working hard. Sometimes it's just a matter of slowing down a little bit. Sometimes you can work a bait fast enough that they won't touch it. And if you just slow down a little bit, you start getting bites, and just things like that. Even when they're on a spinner bait, I've seen it where if you didn't wind that spinner bait really slow, you wouldn't get a bite. You could reel it at a good medium clip and they wouldn't touch it. And your buddy's winding it a little bit slower and they're biting his. And I don't know. I could say, learn how to cast better, learn how to do this, learn how to do that. But I think it all boils down to the mental attitude.
Okay, absolutely. So let's see here. What's your opinion on the umbrella rig and the best time to throw it?
Well, umbrella rig is a very effective tool. I think, generally speaking, I think it's a really good bait in the late fall into the winter and early spring, really when the water temperature is in that 45 to 55 range. I think is generally accepted as the best temperature range for fish to be on that.
Right.
You know, some of the biggest catches that have ever been made in BFLs were made like in March, early spring. There's been tournaments in the late fall where they gang up on the bridges and different lakes. And I think it's more of a late fall through winter to early spring has the potential. I don't know if just the very dead of winter, when it's the coldest it gets, that it is the best bait. But some of the guys probably that use it a lot, they probably catch them during that time too.
Right.
And it works in clear water. It works in stained water. I think it's just something you just have to, if you're willing to get out and throw it all day and put it in different places, from bluffs to bridges to anywhere there's bait around, you know, it's proven to be a deadly weapon, no doubt.
Okay, I got
I
you.
will say something about them umbrella rigs. They're hard to learn how to fish. You know, I've tried. I think I've only caught about 5 fish on an umbrella rig.
Some people have confidence. That goes back to the confidence thing.
I'd rather throw a single swim bait over that umbrella rig.
I think one of the mistakes, and I don't want to portray myself as a umbrella rig expert because I'm far from it, but I think one of the best things you can do is rig your baits with real light heads. I mean, I wouldn't even go with quarters or 3/8. I would go with something like an 1/8 ounce head, smaller baits, something that you can really work slow. I prefer the ones that have the blades on it. And I think it works a lot better if you can cast that out there and work that thing very slowly back through.
Downsize and slow down.
And you can get a lot of bites on it. I mean,
that might be good. We might be using too big a stuff. Yeah, we might be doing that.
But now I defer to some real experts on that, because I'm not a umbrella rig expert.
Sounds good to me. Do you ever use hair jigs?
I have used some from small ones for smallmouth to. I used to think that I could catch spots on them better, but I don't really care for it that much. Now, up on the Tennessee River, those bucktail jigs work really well, and it's something that I would keep in a bait rotation if I was out ledge fishing. And, you know, a bucktail jig is a long, proven bait that catches stripers, bass. You know, I remember fishing a tournament at West Point back in the 80s, and it was summertime, it was hot, and we were catching a few on crankbaits and struggling, and I run into this fella, and we kind of met up on the ledge. And at the time, I considered a bucktail a striper and a hybrid type bait. That's what I caught a lot of them on. But
right.
This guy was in a 2-day bass tournament, and I'd seen him the day before, and we met up. We're fishing close together, and that day, and we got to talking or something, and I said, well, you guys doing any good? And his partner said, well, I think we've caught 55 today.
Good Lord.
And that was probably about 45 or 50 more than I'd caught.
Right.
I thought, what plan am I on today that they can catch that many?
Right.
And it happened to be Van Kennedy, the dad of the fella, I guess, who just finished, I don't know, second or third in the tournament, up the elite tournament, up on Loud and Tellico. And of course, Van was a famous fisherman. You know, he did really well and won a lot of tournaments. And I guess that was the day that I found out that a bucktail was a pretty good bass bait.
Bass bait,
and
yeah.
I hadn't never figured that out. But sure enough, even nowadays, you know, that's something that a lot of fish are caught on, ledge fish up on the Tennessee River, Chickamauga to Kentucky Lake. And it's a it's a great bait.
Still,
no doubt.
still on that. There was a question real quick I want to get to before I forget. Somebody asked about, not that one. We're going to get to that one. Do you ever catch walleyes up on Blue Ridge? Do you ever target them? Or
I
that was
don't
Carter's.
just go-
I'm sorry. Oh, at Carter's. Okay.
At Carter's, no, I don't ever target them. I catch quite a few overall out fishing for bass. And sometimes when I catch one and I know they're there, I can target them for a few minutes. But as far as going out and target them, I don't. They're usually around where the bass are. And I know there's some fellas that fish live bait and that probably do pretty good with them, and they may even catch some on spoons through the summer, but I'm not normally doing that.
Okay.
I got a question. It's a personal question for me. You know, you see a lot of guys fishing tubes for the smallmouth and stuff. Do you ever try fishing a tube for spots?
I have tried it through the years, and I've had people on the boat that's one of their go-to deals. They really love fishing a tube, but it's not one of mine. Not because I don't think it works, but for me, I think there's more efficient things to use than that. I mean, I had a fella from up north that was with me on Allatoona a couple of years ago, and he threw a tube all day, and he caught some. But I think that during that time, I think a shaky head was better. Yeah. But
that brings us to our next question. Which type of shaky head do you like to use the best?
Well, for me, I use a Picasso Rhino head in a 3/16 ounce size for almost year round. And, you know, that just happens to be my favorite one.
Right. I got you. We've been about an hour and a half. You still good?
Yes,
all right,
sir.
Good. All right, we're gonna go a little longer here. So
I got a question. Let's go back to electronics. Humminbird 360. So let's talk about that a little bit. You know, I know a lot of most pros are running it. How big of a game changer has that been? Because, you know, I haven't been on a boat that has one. I've watched the pros fish it, and I've always wanted to actually get in a boat and see how it runs. You know, I like the concept of being able to see 360 degrees, but has that been one of the big game changers for you, or are you still going with traditional sonar? Like, how big was that to you? Because I know you run the birds. Do you run a 360?
I do. I guess it depends on your definition of a game changer. Myself, I don't know if I would call it a game changer. I would call it something that's a great assist, and I really like it, and it can help you, and it'll put an additional fish in the boat for you here and there. Now, maybe I don't get as much out of it as some people. I do. I like it because as you're going down a bank or working back in a pocket, you can see stuff out in the water that you may not know was there.
That'd be like rock piles and
rock or a log laying out there. Yeah. And it shows it on the screen at the precise angle that you need to cast to be over it.
So say you're going down the bank and that stump or lay down is at a 45-degree angle. You throw right there, it's going to be there.
That's right. And I could just name you a lot of cases where even on a lake that I know pretty well, where I run across things that I either didn't know were there or didn't remember were there, and I make a cast out there and I catch one.
Yeah, see, that's how it's kind of been with me with the live scope. You know, I've always been a 2D guy or 3D, whatever it's called, traditional sonar. And I put the live scope on there, and it's me being able to go down a point or something and being able to scan and hit the brush piles and know exactly where they're at, drop my waypoint on them. it's good to me just being able to see exactly where that brush pile, that rock pile's at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see fish in there, but I've already learned I'm gonna throw 5 or 6 times. They don't even look at it. I ain't gonna don't even worry.
Are you
about
one
it.
of those like that? If you come up to some structure, are you a 5 or 6? Like if you're personally fishing, you come up to, let's just say you're on Allatoona, you pull up on the known brush pile. Couple casts. If you don't get bit, you go into the next one. You fish it.
No, I normally do more than that. You know, I grew up fishing with a fella that was a really, really good fisherman, and his idea was if you made a cast or two in it and they weren't there, move on. And I'm sure that served him well. He was successful in tournaments, but I've found that you can make a few more casts sometimes before they bite.
Just sometimes, just stick in there. Just be a little more patient like that.
But 360 is a great thing. Your waypoints are on there. It shows you exactly where to cast, the direction to cast to get in them. It makes you a little more efficient where you're casting. It's easy to mark stuff that you see. It sweeps across there. You just touch the screen on the Solix and you got a waypoint on there. Mm-hmm. And I think it's well worth having. All this sonar, it's just how much money do you want?
Yeah, that's really
how much do you want to spend on it? How much is it worth to you? You can certainly get by without it, but I love having it. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit of an assist.
Yeah, there's already been days that I don't even turn my live scope on. Like I'm going to go throw a crankbait. I don't need to turn this thing on to go throw a crankbait.
That's great. You said crankbait because the next question right there, if you were to throw a crankbait tomorrow at Altoona, what size, what color, and how fast you fishing it?
Well, not knowing exactly where you are on the lake and how much stain is there, but just a stock answer to me I would want a crankbait that would cover that 4 to 6 foot water. If it's really stained, I would want a crawfish, red or chartreuse color. Mm-hmm. And I would not be burning it. I would be using a slow to medium retrieve and finessing that thing through around stumps and rocks and bumping and stopping it and throwing it in a blowdown. And I think one of the things that even myself, I find, I've seen people that could throw a crankbait into the gnarliest looking stuff you ever saw and they wouldn't get hung up because they're patient. They take their time to wind it through there. They can tell when their line is up over a limb and they're about to hit it, and they stop it and they take their time, and most of the time they can get it through anything. Now, if you're impatient and you throw it out there and you grind it down there and it stops and then you grind it again and you just keep plowing it, you're going to hang it up on a lot of places.
Right.
But in this wintertime, I think it's a lot better to finesse it through that stuff. You know, naturally, when you hit a rock and you temporarily stop it, they're not, a lot of times they don't jerk it out of your hand, but you'll feel them pull back on it. It can be a subtle bite. Now, we're getting past the dead of winter. We're getting more into the spring, but still, I think a crankbait's not just an idiot bait that you throw out there and you wind in and you expect them to jump on it. Mm-hmm. Now, some people fish it like that, and sometimes they catch something in spite of themselves. Mm. But if you really focus on how to work that thing through the heaviest cover, bump it without getting it hung up all the time, and work it through that stuff, you'll catch a ton more fish than you will just casting out and winding it in. Mm. There's really an art to that versus just throwing it out and winding it in.
I bet a lot of people make that mistake.
Yeah, look at Keith Combs. That's one of the best crankers there is. I mean, it blows my mind how some guys, and I've watched people do it, like Tim Pruitt. I've been with him, and he'll run that thing through a brush pile at 20 foot, and I'm sitting there going, how do you even do that?
How'd you not get hung up?
How'd you not do that? I can throw a shaky head out there, and I'm going to hang it up on one of the limbs, but you're reeling treble hooks.
Right. Facebook user. Again, hey, if you join us on our next episode, if you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, you can enter your name and we'll be able to call you by your name instead of Facebook user. But again, right now, Bill, do you fish topwater a lot after dark in summer? And I guess he means to say, and on which lake, Carter's or Allatoona?
I'm not a big topwater fisherman after dark. I will, on occasion, throw it some, and I love to get bit on topwater after dark, and I hear of people catching some good catches on it. It's not one of my real confidence deals at night. Now, I love nothing better than to throw a buzz bait or something like that and get bit on it at night. But it's not one of the main things I do, but I do it on occasion, both at Allatoona and Carter's. And it can work. I guess I don't consider it a high percentage deal, but some nights people, I have friends that tell me they've caught 8 or 10 on a buzz bait at night.
You're right, but that's just not something. Will you fish a Carolina rig?
Only if I have to.
Right.
I'd do just about anything to catch a few fish, but I don't throw it at Carter's, and I really don't use it at Allatoona ever very much, although you can catch some down there, and I've caught some. I'm more prone at times to throw it at Lake Weiss, and it's a great technique, and sometimes it works. It seems like when almost nothing else will. But I'm afraid nowadays, if that's what they're biting, sometimes I'll miss it.
Gotcha.
But I want to do anything that can consistently help me catch some fish, and even that is something that I don't hate it. I just don't do it a whole lot.
I got you. Mike Buka says hello.
Hey, Mike.
Well, what was the next? What's the?
I like this one that John Weeks put. What's your number one confidence bait? Like if you're just struggling, what are you gonna pick up and throw? Go catch one. A year-round thing that you can pick it up out of the boat and catch one.
Well, it's such a general question. If you took winter, summer, night, day,
right, so many factors,
a lot of different lakes, it might not even be my favorite thing to fish, but a shaky head would have to be high on the list to work on a number of different occasions. Now, I always try to find alternatives to that, but there's just times when I think if you didn't know anything else, I don't know what else you could do that would be better than that.
Than a shake head. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen on the lake? Or on any lake, I guess.
I've seen an airplane land next to us on a ledge on Chickamauga. Like one of the floating planes.
Right.
The craziest thing I've seen is a car with a trailer and a boat on it go down the ramp backwards and wind up underwater.
I believe that.
That sounds about right.
Some of these idiots.
I'm surprised that don't happen more often. But that's right. If you were fishing Logan Martin this coming weekend, what would you throw? I love that question. What would you throw?
Well, if I was at Logan Martin, I would try to develop multiple shallow patterns. I would have anything from a square bill to a rattle trap, a chatterbait, and then if I couldn't do any good with that, I'd probably slow down with a jig and a shaky head. Now, I realize you might go over there and win that tournament doing something totally different than any of the stuff I just mentioned.
Right.
But that's kind of how I would. That's how I would approach it. I would look to find, generally I think the water would be stained down there enough to fish those moving baits. And, but on a lake, on the Coosa River, those are the things that I would look for. And I would also always have a jig or some sort of flipping bait ready to drop it in any shallow cover that I came across.
Gotcha. What is your personal best largemouth? Where did you catch it, and what did you catch it on?
11 pounds Chickamauga swim bait.
You remember what kind of swim bait it was?
It was a 3-inch easy shiner.
3-inch easy shiner. What are you laughing for?
That's small for big fish.
Big bait, big fish.
Is that what it is? All right, go to Rule. Are you still fishing the small Kitech on Allatoona? And what water temp do you scale back on using it?
I would fish it on occasion. Right now, with the water stained, I'm not real big on fishing it, but there would be occasions I would fish it, and I'll really, not all the time, but I will have it ready to throw on up until it gets on into June. I think for me, that bait's the least effective through the summer, but on Allatoona anyway. Right. So probably up until June, early June, I'll let the fish really tell me, but when they quit biting it, I'll quit casting it some.
I got you.
And there's not a particular temperature. It just depends. Sometimes I've caught them good throughout May, and on I think after they spawn and they start moving out a lot deeper, I catch some hybrids through the summer on it, but in the summer, I don't. Now, you're subject to catch one on it anytime. It's just a nice little bait. If you pull it around one, they may bite it, but I usually don't use it much in the summer. It'll be fall before I start back with it.
I like this question right here. Fondest memory from fishing or any favorite trips? What's your fondest memory?
I've had a lot of good trips up to Kentucky Lake around Memorial Day for several years, ledge fishing up there, going up there for a week or two and catching several hundred fish, sitting on one place and catching 200 fish without moving. Just several years ago, really my favorite place in the world to go. But I got a lot of favorite memories, made a trip out to Lake Fork a couple of years ago and had a great time catching fish on a frog. And gosh, I got a lot of great memories from West Point from years ago.
Right.
I've got as many great memories on Allatoona as anywhere from years back, from night fishing to back when you used to catch when I used to catch a lot more largemouths. It wasn't anything to be out on a brush pile or out deep with a Texas rig at night and catch 5 and 6 pound largemouth. And I've got a ton of great memories.
That's
from
good
fishing.
though. That's awesome that you've got them like that. If you were fishing a shaky head, what's your go-to line and what pound? You said 3. Didn't you say it was a 3/8?
3/16.
3/16. Okay.
I mostly fish a 3/16, and I've used a lot of different braids. I use a lot of Sunline braid and Sunline fluorocarbon. My favorite braid for swim baits through the winter is their Siglon. But when I'm fishing a shaky head, I'm not as big on Siglon is the smallest diameter braid I think I've ever used. And when you're fishing really deep, that really, really helps you. But now when I'm fishing a shaky head, not so deep, and I've got a lot more on the hook set, it's a lot more violent, a lot more. I like a little beefier braid, like their SX or their one of their others other than Siglon.
Okay.
But I like a brightly colored braid, fluorescent green or orange, whatever it is. I like those high visibility type braids.
Gotcha. All right, on this question, we'll do it like real quick. He wants to know what's the one bait you have for each season. So I'm gonna say pre-spawn, and you're gonna say
depends on the lake. But
Altoona.
If we're on Allatoona and it's pre-spawn, my favorite bait, my favorite bait I want to catch them on is a chatterbait. My favorite bait that might do better is probably maybe a jerk bait.
Okay. All right, spawn.
A Cinco.
Post spawn.
Scrounger.
Okay, let's say dead of summer.
At night, spinnerbait.
Going into the fall.
Swim bait.
Okay, now we're getting back into we'll say late fall, dead of winter.
And we're still at Allatoona. Jig.
All right, let's don't leave the Carter's boys out. Let's do the same thing on Carter's. All right, so pre-spawn.
Swim bait.
Okay. All right, spawn.
Shaky head.
Post spawn.
Wake bait.
Okay. Okay. All right. Summertime night.
Spinner bait.
All right. Fall. Early fall.
Early fall.
He's putting some thought into this.
He's tapping his fingers. He's
Shaky
got a lot of
head.
stuff.
Shaky head. All right. And dead of winter.
Swim bait.
Okay. Awesome. You ever fished Okeechobee?
Yes.
How was it?
It was pretty fun for a guy that was lost and didn't know where he was.
Right. It's a big lake, ain't it?
It was. And I if I went back today, I'd probably still be lost. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Caught a lot of fish on culprit worms, round bull rushes, caught a good many flipping.
Right.
And I didn't catch a good many ever on anything else.
I got you. Let's wrap this thing up with this question right here with Jerry Lassiter right there. So I'm going to fish Blue Ridge on Thursday for the first time. Is Blue Ridge similar to Carter's Lake? If so, how? And if it's different, how?
I don't really consider them to be very similar at all.
Okay, very different lakes.
You got a lot of barren, flat banks. If you look at that lake when the water's down, you got a lot of bare banks, and that's not to say when the lake's up you can't catch those fish there, but it's just a lot different than Carter's. I don't find the fish getting in the ditches quite as heavily. A shaky head is a good bait up there around cover and way out off the bank on different structure. A Demiki rig works good at times. I've had really great success on a underspin up there through the fall, and I just find it a lot different than Carter's. It's not quite as steep, and
They just fish different.
They fish quite a bit different to me.
Okay, that makes, and that's just, I mean, that's the lay of the lake.
Yeah.
Just the definite lay of the lake. So you got any more questions for Mr. Payne?
No, I enjoyed it.
I tell you what, this is
soaked up some information or not.
This has been one of those episodes where a lot of you guys are going to go back tomorrow and you're going to have to watch it again because you didn't have time to get it all in tonight. You want to go ahead and plug your sponsors and your business? Make sure you get your.
Yeah, if any of you guys want to get out and go fishing with an old man, I'm available all the time.
Right.
I do fish primarily at Carter's and Allatoona, but I do go to some other places by request. You can reach me at 706-280-2305. I've got a website, billpayneguideservice.com. You can see me on Facebook at Bill Payne Guide Service. My numbers are on there. I'd love to get with any of you guys anytime. We'll go out and I try to, on my trips, it might sound funny, but to me, the best trip is a trip when I want it to be where you really are going out like with your fishing buddy and you have a good time. Really, if you go with me, you're welcome to bring your own tackle, whatever you want to try, whatever you want to use. But really, you can come get in the boat with me and not bring anything. I've got the rods, the reels, the baits. I furnish lunch, drinks, water, soft drinks, snacks. Really, all you need to do is dress for the occasion and come get in the boat. I'm going to make it easy on you, and we're going to do our best to go out there and have a little fun and catch some fish.
I tell you what, Bill, that's awesome. I knew, I can tell by I knew beforehand, you coming back on, we were going to have a ton of people who are going to stay all the way through the show. Lots of times we get about an hour or so in and people get sleepy, want to go to bed. We can see the numbers drop off. We've kept good numbers all the way through. I knew there'd be a ton of questions and that everybody would really take part in this one. And like I said, the best. Hey, do you have oatmeal pies? Nathan Dong wants to know. Do you have oatmeal pies?
Well, I'll have anything by request. I try to ask if anybody's got any special requests.
Yeah, Barday wants a bologna sandwich.
Well, I can do that for sure.
There you go. Well, let's see. So there's 2 bologna sandwiches. So he's a super guy. I will go again, and that bologna sandwich you had is killer. So evidently you've had some good bologna. And
I want to say, I know a lot of people's got things at night that they could do, but I appreciate everybody tuning in and with their questions. And if I didn't answer them well, if you'll call me up, I'll try to give you a better explanation.
Oh Lord, don't do that. They'll be keeping you up all the time. So again, yeah, I knew it would be one of the best shows that we would have. And again, any show that I don't have to talk a lot is a great show. That means that the people are taking part and the guest is doing his part and giving out good information. So real quick, one question. What's the max number of people that you can have on your boat?
Generally, I take 2 people. There's been some occasions where a dad wanted to bring their kid and his buddy and so forth. And depending on the skill level or if he wants to sit, you get 3 or 4 people casting, it can be a little dangerous. Yeah. So normally it's me and 2 people, but there are some rare exceptions to that. Absolutely, but I try to keep it that way just for everybody's enjoyment, really.
I understand that completely. So, all right, guys. So we're going to wrap it up tonight. Again, go check out Bill on the information he gave you on his Facebook page and on his website, billpayneguideservice.com. That was it again. We've given out the number several times, and again, you can find it on Facebook. He's always posting pictures. You post them with the Fish North Georgia group a lot.
Yeah,
you like that, so you can always keep up with what he's targeting, what he's catching. Again, I've learned a lot just listening tonight, and I think a lot of you guys have too. And so this is great. We appreciate every single second that you've been here, Bill. And again, one of the truly good guys in this sport. And Blake, glad that you're back. But I know this was a quiet night for you, but that's good.
No, soaking up information.
That's good. Soaking up the information. Guys, again, hey, listen, if you're on Facebook, give us a follow. The Facebook page and the Fish North Georgia group page. If you're on YouTube, we want you to subscribe and hit the notification. Ring that bell so you can be notified of any future content. You can follow us on Instagram at Fish North Georgia and on Twitter at fishnorthga.com. We've even got a TikTok that Josh has put out stuff at Fish North. I guess it's GA or Georgia. I don't know which one the TikTok is. So, but anyway, we want you guys to follow us along, and we're going to come back Thursday night. Got another good show for you with Phil Hutchinson. If you guys remember him, he is the bearded fella that kind of stumped us all with his knowledge about how he fished for trout, basically with bass gear and all that. That was one show that we were just kind of all mesmerized with. Well, he's coming back Thursday.
He's going to have a good story about a big one he just caught
last week. He caught a really big
He caught
one.
a giant.
He caught a giant. So he's going to be back. And, don't forget the cheese. That's right, Eric Payne. I love my followers. Eric Payne, he came by at the shop. We've got Waiawega, all right, cheese curds. All right, he actually purchased some Waiawega cheese from us the other day. We've got it. It's $10.50 a bag. It is absolutely, if you love cheese curds, or, they make a great snack on the boat, especially the warmer it gets during the day, the better these things get. Or if you want to take them home and batter them up in some beer batter and fry them like they do up north, they're great. So, Eric, we appreciate you coming by, and I appreciate you reminding me of that. But, guys, tune in next Thursday, or this coming up Thursday, 8 o'clock. We'll be back with Phil. And, again, Bill, thank you very much. And you guys check him out. And we love you guys, and we appreciate you. And we'll see you soon.